Imagine a single company, not a government, not an army, but a private company with a business plan, managing to take over an entire subcontinent. It sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, right? But it's the real, honest-to-goodness origin story of the British Raj in India, and that's what we're digging into today. So let's just get right to it. The big question: how on earth does a group of merchants, a private company, end up conquering a massive, powerful subcontinent? I mean, on the surface, it just doesn't seem possible. Well, the whole story doesn't kick off with invading armies or these huge epic battles. Nope, it starts way more quietly than that. It all starts with a simple but unbelievably powerful piece of paper, a document that would completely change the course of history for both Britain and India. Now, to really get why this piece of paper was so important, we have to understand the world it was born into. We're talking about the turn of the 17th century, a time of just intense global competition. You could really call it the Great Spice Race. So why was everyone in such a frantic race to get to India? Well, the answer, in one word, is profit. India was an absolute treasure trove. Spices like pepper and cloves, they were worth more than their weight in gold back in Europe. And it wasn't just spices. It was this global hub for all the most wanted goods: beautiful cotton, luxurious silks, tea, indigo, even opium. If you could get a piece of that action, you could make your country incredibly rich. Right, but here's the thing. The English were not the first ones to figure this out, not by a long shot. When they finally decided to get in on the game, they were sailing into some very crowded, very competitive waters. They were, to put it mildly, late to the party. I mean, just look at the timeline. The race was already well underway. The Portuguese had been there for 100 years. The Dutch had already formed their own super powerful East India Company. And pretty soon, the French and even the Danes had set up shop. So the British weren't just walking into a marketplace. They were walking onto a battleground of European rivals. So to even stand a chance, a group of English merchants knew they needed a serious edge. They needed official backing from the top. They needed a charter. And they got it. On the very last day of the 16th century, December 31st, 1600, Queen Elizabeth I signed the document that would set this whole incredible story in motion. A new century was about to begin, and with it, a totally new kind of power was about to be unleashed. This was the official name she gave them. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it's super important. It wasn't an army, it wasn't a department of the government. It was, right there in the title, a company of merchants. Their whole purpose was business. But this royal charter was so much more than just a permission slip. It gave the company an exclusive 15-year monopoly on all English trade east of Africa. The Queen was basically telling every other British merchant, you are forbidden from competing with these guys. This is their turf. It was the ultimate state-backed business advantage. Okay, but here's where the story takes a really wild turn. A business license, even a monopoly, is one thing. But how does a company of traders morph into a ruling power? So how did they pull it off? Well, the answer isn't some big, single power grab. It was a slow, creeping expansion of their authority, granted to them piece by piece by the British Crown over decades. Just look at how this power snowballed. It started simply, with the right to make rules for its own employees. But pretty soon, its trade monopoly was made permanent. Then, and this is incredible, it was given the power of life and death. Just think about that for a second. A private company could now execute people. But the real game changer was the final step, a charter that let the company judge everyone under its authority, employee or not. All of a sudden, this trading firm was also a government. When you put it side by side like this, the transformation is just staggering. In just over 60 years, the company went from being about trading spices to holding the power of judgment over human lives. It was now, for all intents and purposes, a miniature state, thousands of miles away from home. And this legal transformation, this is what planted the real seeds of an empire. With these new government-like powers, the company wasn't just a group of traders anymore. It used this foundation to get aggressive. It started setting up factories, which were really more like fortified trading bases all across India. It won a major military victory against its Portuguese rivals really early on, back in 1612. It was negotiating directly with Mughal rulers for more rights to trade. So what you have now is a private company that controls territory, wins its own battles, and runs its own courts. Which leaves us with a pretty critical question, doesn't it? By the middle of the 1600s, with the power to trade, to rule, to judge, and to wage war, was the East India Company really still just a company?
Or was it already something else entirely, the unofficial beginning of an empire born from that simple piece of paper?
It's a fascinating thing to think about. We love digging into transformations like this every week here on The Explainer. So if you enjoyed this, please do us a favor and like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Thanks for watching.